The government want to encourage them. There are obviously many environmentally friendly means behind it, and that's to be applauded. But if we don't have the law in place, the problems are going to outweigh the benefits.
We're increasingly seeing electric scooters, more commonly known as e-scooters, zipping around our streets. But now there's a real worry of the harm they could cause.
This comes after a 16-year-old schoolboy was tragically killed whilst riding an e-scooter after a hit-and-run collision with a car in South London.
It's also believed that the boy's e-scooter was stolen by thieves from the scene of the crime.
The unfortunate young man, who's yet to be identified, is at least the fifth person to die on Britain's roads while riding an e-scooter, raising concerns about the safety measure put in place for these vehicles, which can travel at up to 50 miles an hour.
Research suggests they are 100 times more dangerous than bicycles.
At least 5 people are now known to have died in e-scooter accidents.
The Metropolitan Police have seized more than 2,000 illegally used e-scooters since the start of the year.
With us to speak about e-scooters is Nick Freeman, a GBNews regular, a solicitor who specialises in traffic and speeding offences. Hi Nick, good to see you again on GBNews. I hope you enjoyed the sunshine over the weekend. Bit of a tan.
Yes, it is.
Isn't it the case that the law is yet to catch up with the reality of these vehicles? I mean, they're faster than some small motorbikes for which you need to sort of do 2 tests and have a licence and insurance.
Yeah, the first thing, you're absolutely right. The e-scooters can travel up to 68 miles an hour, and the versions in America can actually go up to 100 miles an hour. So they're incredibly rapid, and the design is flawed, and they're extremely dangerous. And of course, we ask ourselves the question, should they be banned? They are already banned. They're illegal on our roads and on our pavements. We shouldn't have them. They're not allowed. So the ban is in place, but the difficulty is enforcing the ban. The only things that are actually permitted are the trial bikes, the trial e-scooters, which have been rolled out over various areas in the country. And they have a maximum speed of 15.5 miles an hour, which is 12.5 miles an hour in London. So obviously at that speed, whilst the riders are still vulnerable and could be a victim of an accident, there's a huge difference between an accident at that speed and an accident at something like 40 and 50 miles an hour. So we're hearing all the time, tragically, of fatalities of people illegally using e-scooters, which shouldn't be on our roads. So this is a serious problem that the government needs to grapple and get hold of very quickly. Otherwise, our streets are going to become bloodbaths. And I'm afraid that's not an exaggeration, not only in terms of injury, but also in terms of crime. There is actually at the moment no specific law for e-scooters, so they're categorised in exactly the same way as a car or a motor vehicle is categorised. But the huge difficulty is, whilst there's laws in place for cars, we know who's driving a car at any one time, but we don't know who's riding an e-scooter because there's no proper means of identification. And we need to fill that hole, because if we make people identifiable, they become responsible and they're likely to drive in a much more sensible way.
In how any new laws or regulations might work, what do you want to see that's not happening at the moment?
The first thing, as I've just stated, is I want all riders to have a registered tabard, because the e-scooter is too small to have something attached to it, I think. So we need to have a registered tabard so that at any one time, anyone who drives on a pavement, a video can be taken of that can be, so that the driver can be traced and that e-scooter can be confiscated. I'd like to see, the Met have seized apparently 2,000 so far. There are tens of thousands of e-scooters illegally being used on the roads. I'd like to see a huge operation across the country where literally all these illegal e-scooters are seized for a week. And if that happened, I think, bearing in mind the costs involved in terms of purchasing them, then paying a fine, and of course points on driving records or licenses, would act as a huge deterrent. And I'd like to see the government act very quickly to deal with this identification issue. You can imagine the mayhem if we said to car drivers, I tell you what we're going to do, we're going to remove your registration plate for a week. Can you imagine the mayhem that would unleash on our roads? And that's exactly what's happening with something which is actually far more dangerous, because the riders are very vulnerable and they're quiet and they nip up on the inside, the outside, And then, of course, they're on the pavement, and there's a huge crime wave that's being committed, facilitated by these e-scooters. So the government want to encourage them. There are obviously many environmentally friendly means behind it, and that's to be applauded. But if we don't have the law in place, the problems are going to outweigh the benefits.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.